Alright, so welcome to another unboxing, guys, and today we have the CCA CSA. So what's really interesting here is this is again another sub $10 IEM, and this time it's from CCA. So it falls right smack competing with the TRN MT1 and also the CCA CST and also the KZ EDX as well. So it's getting more and more competitive in that price range. So is this the best one of the group? We're gonna find out in this video. Of course, big thanks to CCA themselves for sending this over. Links down below for their shop. Small and comfortable in-ear dynamic earphone, CCA CSA in small box as well. So it has some 3.5mm jack, 112 dB in sensitivity, 10 to 20 kHz in frequency range, 23 ohm impedance as well. So opening it up, so this is price range similar to the MT1. So under $10 here. Of course, what's really interesting here is this is a CCA product, and usually I do prefer CCAs over your KZ counterparts. But we're gonna find out if this is the case as well here. And under $10, you have the CCA CST as well, and I do like that. You have that wood trims for $10, really great value. So hopefully this is maybe right in the ballpark of the MT1. So if it is, this might be one of our top recommendations. We're gonna find out. And the IEM itself doesn't have removable cables here, so that's a bit unfortunate. But you do have a very small lobe here, one of the smallest that I've seen. So really cool on that. This kind of reminds me of maybe the CCA CKX, but this definitely is smaller compared to that. You're getting a mobile style cable as well, so yeah, definitely not the best in terms of the build quality, but you're getting that preform earrocks, which is really interesting. So this is the first time that I have seen non-removable preform earrocks in this price range. So looking at the build quality, so definitely it's made of plastic, and the shape itself it's smaller compared to your usual maybe hybrid configuration, of course. So this is one of the smallest IEMs that I have seen, if not the smallest. That is not maybe a bullet style design. So that's really cool on that. So you're getting maybe a dynamic driver look at the bottom. It's a see-through here. One of the bigger issues is the non-removable cable. So in the TRN MT1, you have removable cables, which is quite nice for the price you're paying for. So yes, pretty simple design overall. So let's have our first listen. Alright, so wearing this on the ear, it's definitely stable, so it goes inside your ear, and that ear hooks helps out in making this really stable to wear on the ear. It's quite breathable on the ear as well, so it's very comfortable to wear. So for long listening sessions, you won't have an issue with this. Isolation is just alright, so I can still hear some of my voice, so it's not the best here, but yeah, it blocks out some of the noise, but not the best isolation here. So let's try to listen to some tracks. So let's have a listen to some Let's Groove, Earth, Wind and Fire. Alright, so firstly, this really reminds me of the TRN MT1. So on the ear, this is more of a U type of shape. So it's more of a musical type of listen. So it's quite lively to listen to. So this is not your relaxed kind of listen. And yes, a U-shaped sound on the ear. So this is more of a fun listen with the CCA CSA. So I can see some shimmer on top here, but the shimmer here might be a bit toned down compared to the CCA CST. So your CCA CST will be more lively to listen to. So this is a bit more toned down, a bit more relaxed on the ear. So in this track, I encountered a bit of hotness in the mids. So maybe similar to your CCA CST, we might be seeing a peak on top here. So let's try some It's My Life on Bon Jovi. So the vocals here are really recessed in the mix. So the vocals of Bon Jovi in this mix is definitely back in the mix. So maybe a bit too back in the mix for me. So we might be seeing that recession in the mids here later when we measure it. So for me, this won't be for vocal heads. So on top, there's definitely that shimmer there. So the cymbals has that splashiness in the cymbals here, much like your more expensive CCAs. So let's try some 24K Magic Bruno Mars. So your TRN MT1 might have more clarity on top compared to this one. So the bass is in the boomy side, so definitely I'm really energetic in the mix. But this is not overwhelming bass here. So it's just a boomy, but not overwhelming. So the soundstage is not that big here. Definitely more intimate. Separation for me is not that good as well. Presentation is more smooth here. So the separation is not that black and white. So the cymbals here, yes, again in this track is lacking a bit of body for me. So this has some splashiness in the cymbals on top. Let's try I Shot the Sheriff by Eric Clapton. And yes, the vocal is quite recessed in the mix here. So I'm seeing that this might be a TRN MT1. But toned down a bit of 12K, and the the top here might be more peaky than the TRN MT1, but it's still very lively to listen to. So the bass is prominent in the mix, but the sub bass doesn't go that deep here. So I would say this is not for bass heads. So yes, the bass is prominent but not overly done. So this doesn't overpower the rest of the spectrum. And one of my bigger issues here is the vocal sound a bit thin for me. It's not the most natural to listen to vocals here. So as I remember, compared to the CST, this is definitely thinner in terms of the overall presentation. CCA CST will be more natural to listen to. So let's try some You Not Me Dream Theater. Yeah, in this track, the cymbals again has that splashiness in the cymbals. So not the fullest bodied cymbals here. So this is a detail retrieval. There's not a lot here, so this definitely in the lower side. So it falls in that kind of price range. This is the detail retrieval here. So I would say in terms of the overall presentation, this might be closer to the EDX than the TRN MT1. So this might be more relaxed than the TRN MT1. Your TRN MT1 will be more lively to listen to. So let's try to measure this up. Alright, so we now did some measurements in the CCA CSA, and yes, it's kind of a mixture of the ZSX here and the TRN MT1. So it confirmed my first impressions that the 12K might be a bit less prominent in the mix here. So this can work for some people, especially if you don't like a 12K peak. But as I mentioned in my first impressions as well, so there's definitely that peak there. So here in the 6K, it's definitely big in the mix. And yeah, quite spiky as well. So this might explain some hotness in the vocal for me. So it's very similar to the TRN MT1. It's still a bright U type of shape on the ear. So it's not an overly bassy pair, so which can work for some people. So from the bass region, you're getting that recession to around 1K, similar to the MT1. But looking at the CCA CSA, so the bass is a bit more elevated in around the mid bass region. So that might explain a little bit of boom in the bass here. So the bass has that boomy side to it, but still it's not that overpowering the rest of the spectrum. So from the 1K region, you're getting that slight hump at around 1 to 2K, and then you get that recession at around 2K here, and then after that goes to the major peak at around 5K. And looking at the peak here, so definitely the peak is more compared to what you get with the TRN MT1. Your TRN MT1 will have more recessed 5K here. So maybe that kind of explains that I did encounter some hotness in the CSA. So the TRN MT1 will be less so in that regard. And then after that 5K 6K peak here, it goes down to around 10K. And then after that, it goes up to around 12K with your 12K peak here. But actually, the elevation in the 12K is definitely more recessed compared to your TRN MT1. So this also explains that on the ear, the CCA CSA is a bit more relaxed to the ear. So your TRN MT1, because of that more elevated 12K, sounds more musical, more lively to listen to. So yeah, pros and cons here, it will kind of depend on your preference here. So compared to the CCA CST, so as I mentioned in my review and in my unboxing, the CCA CST also has that hotness. So a tip change is needed for the CST to tame down the hotness there. But looking at the CST, your CST will be more of a U, more of a V type of shape compared to what you get with your CCA CSA. So from the bass region, your CCA CST will have maybe around 10 to 15 dB more elevated bass in the mix. And also in the top end, you're getting maybe 5 dB more elevated 6K. So in terms of the overall listen, so it's more lively to listen to in the CCA CST. So yeah, definitely pros and cons on that. But it's a CCA tuning as well. And actually for the CCA CST, the 12K is more elevated in the mix. So this also explains maybe the more lively nature of the CCA CST. So compared to the QKZ VK4, so definitely the VK4, looking at the graph, is gonna be more relaxed to the ear. It has less of that 5K, better vocal positioning because the mids is more elevated in the mix. And that bass region as well is a little bit more controlled still in your VK4. But yes, pros and cons here for those who like more clarity at the top. You might like the CSA. That 12K as well in the CSA, might be an advantage for some. over your VK4. So your VK4 doesn't have that 12K here. So yes, difference in tuning here. So your VK4 will still be more tame, just the overall tuning compared to the CCA CSA. So compared to the EDX, so the EDX definitely has that KZ type of tuning on the ear. So in the EDX, you're getting that really elevated 12K. So that's one of the key landmarks of KZs. The 12Ks may be 10 dB more elevated than your CCA CSA. So for some people, you might like a 12K. So in the 5K as well, the EDX is more toned down compared to the CCA. So your CCA will have stronger 5K here. But actually in the bass region, you're getting very similar results. So if not the same results. So this might explain that the listening to the CCA CSA, it really reminded me of the EDX here. So yes, on the ear they do have some similarities, and as you guys can see, the 12K and the 5K elevation as well in the EDX and the CCA CSA is quite in the same level here. So they both have that clarity at the top in terms of the overall listen. So yeah, both of them doesn't have overwhelming bass here. But actually yes, in my listen, the EDX and the CCA CSA, both of them have that quite thin vocal for me in the mix. So I'm not that big of a fan of the vocal for this too. Alright, so I did some further listening and compared it to other IEMs in the $10 range and versus the KZ EDX. So both of them have a lot of similarities. So for me, they're kind of like equal in the sound quality. So here is why. So both of them have that clarity on top, as I mentioned in the measurements. Both of them have some similarities in the vocals as well. So they're quite similar in the presentation of the vocal. But the CCA CSA is a bit more lively to listen to in the vocal. But both of them have that thinness in the vocal here. So the EDX has a bigger stage for me, more of that 12K shimmer on top. So a little bit more lively in the mix. Still has some hotness in the EDX here, but for me, the sibilance, that hotness is a bit more prominent in the CCA CSA. So the CCA CSA has a smaller stage, a bit more lively vocal here, a bit more revealing vocal, has less of that 12K, but a little bit hotter as well in the CCA CSA. So for me personally, it will just depend on your preference. So I would say in terms of the overall sound quality, I find them to be tie here. So either or depends on your preference. So compared to the MT1, so the MT1 has more prominent bass in the mix. So the CCA is a bit more relaxed in comparison. So definitely if you like a more lively sound, you might like the MT1. So the vocals are more revealing for me in the MT1. So if the CCA CSA has a bit more thinness there, so it's better now for me in the MT1. So the stage is a little bit better in the MT1, but they're very similar. This is just a tad better here. Also less hotness for me in the MT1. So for me personally, when I listen to them side by side, I do like the MT1 more. So I like that the vocal are more revealing, a more lively sound as well, impactful on bass as well. So yes, in terms of the overall tuning, I do find the MT1 to be better than the CCA CSA. But that is unless you don't like a 12K peak. So if you don't like a 12K peak, you might like the CCA CSA more. So compared to the CCA CST, it's wooden case brother. So the CST is more revealing in the mix, fuller vocal presentation as well. So the vocal, the thinness in the vocal of the CCA CSA is better now in the CCA CST. So I like the fuller vocal presentation there. The CCA CST though is a touch hotter than the CCA CSA. So for me, you do need to have a tip change in the CST. The stage also is a bit bigger in the CST. So it's more lively to listen to in the CST. Here in the CSA, it's more relaxed to the ear. So if you like a more lively sound, go for the CCA CST. If you like more relaxed sound and less 12K as well, you might like the CCA CSA. So for me, in my personal preference, I do like the CCA CST more. So for me, the vocals are fuller. It sounds more lively as well. So even if it's hot, there's some sibilance or shoutiness there. I do like the CCA CST overall. But yeah, for me, I need to fix the hotness there. Maybe some tip change. Alright, so I'm not comparing it anymore to the VK4, but I do like the VK4 over the CCA CSA. overall. Alright, so verdict for the CCA CSA. I think if this is one of the first that I've listened to in the price range, I may be impressed by it. But unfortunately, there's already the MT1, the CST, and you still have the VK4 in the list. And for me personally, yes, this is equal to the EDX. But for me, I do like the MT1, the CST, and the VK4 better than the CCA CSA. But what's cool with the CCA CSA is it still has its unique selling point because you don't have that much 12K. So if you're into that, if you're into kind of a TFZ-ish kind of sound on the ear with that less 12K, you might still like the CCA CSA. But still, if you're a collector, you know, having the CCA CSA still will give you a unique selling point because you don't have that much 12K, and that might you know, still work for some people. But yes, for me, I do prefer the MT1, CCA CST, and the VK4 over your CSA. So that's my unboxing of the CCA CSA. So what do you think of the CCA CSA? Have you listened to it? Have you heard it? What do you think of it? Let me know down in the comments below. And thanks for watching, and I'm gonna see you guys in the next zpolt review. Bye bye.